How do you get it so quickly?
Ray, I don't know what app you're using, but it literally pops up right on top of the screen.
Yeah.
I have an app that's called UseTube. It's UseTube. You guys.
UseTubes?
It's UseTubes.
Let's see what it says. And we're on.
Now I'm going to post over to Facebook.
I love how when it comes to me posting the link on Twitter and Ray posting on Facebook, it's just silence. You know, that's how you know the production value is top notch.
This is what people pay for right here.
Both of us having to look at a different part of the screen and put a link up just causes us to stop. We're like, you guys ever seen that old YouTube video, Chocolate Rain?
Oh, Chocolate Rain.
Thank you. Now that's in my head. It's been
but you know when they show the guy playing, they never show him singing and playing at the same time. Like if you watch, they cut away from his face to show his hands, and they cut back to his face because he can't sing and play. Which I can't sing or play, so I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's definitely more talented than me.
Yeah, it was good for that guy, right?
Okay.
So what's going on, boys?
So things are proceeding where I've returned to court, and it is, I don't know. It's funny. The funny part to me is that I was in an upstairs court in about the middle, a felony court, and it was crowded in there. I mean, the attorneys crowded it.
So you know what? Like I just had this conversation with my baby mama up there. Like today there were just people all over in the hallway, and to think that Woodstock anyways is basically just allowing you to waive your client's presence on misdemeanors, but by the next round of court dates we're back to normal. Where are these people going to go? I mean, the courtroom holds 4 or 5 people. It's going to be chaos, and it's like they're just ignoring the fact that they're going to pack 300 people into the hallway, right?
Well, I think they're going on the assumption that everything's going to be back to normal, and it's not.
No, where are we going to? So I don't want to get too into it, but the Kane County had a call earlier this week they had every judge in the criminal division, the chief judge, and then basically anybody who wanted to link it. And there were like 50 or 60 attorneys. But Judge Hull, who I've talked about before, I think is like the right guy for this situation. He's younger. He's not scared of technology. He said, look, I understand other counties are doing this differently, but we do weekly meetings with the Supreme Court. They do what's called a leadership meeting. And they haven't come out and said this, but they've said, here are the guidelines. We are going to follow their guidelines to the T. And they are basically telling me that these guidelines will not change before the end of the year. So forget what JB says. Kane County at least is interpreting what the Supreme Court is saying to be, you guys need a longer plan. And then you go to Woodstock and it's like, by August, we're just going to be back to regular court calls, and there's nowhere for these people to go. I mean, they're just gonna open the courtrooms and let everybody sit in the pews again. Is that what they think is going to happen?
Well, the thing that was tough for me is that the attorney line in the courtroom downstairs and in some of the courtrooms upstairs was 10 deep.
Yeah.
Well, it's 10 deep. We have the people spread out in the pews. We've got to have 30 people in a courtroom, and it's not 600 square feet.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is, the first appearance after the lockdown was waived.
Right.
But some of my clients want to be there. They want to set them for trial. They want to get it done.
Of course.
But, you can call one case and then you have to go out and find your guy, see if your guy's there, if he's not there. But they've got, they're spreading them out in the hallways. So somebody who's in front of 303 is going to be 10 doors down.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, sorry, guys. Logistically, like, first of all, getting your client in the courtroom is a pain. Because, like, Ray and I had a client today we're co-counsel on, and this guy is, Ray stepped up while I ran to get him. But forget just the logistics of getting your guy in the courtroom for his case. Like, what are we doing when that hallway which now has like 6 seats in it, is filled all the way up and down, right? It's sort of like we've gone through all this trouble to make sure nobody sits within 6 feet so we can say the courtrooms are social distancing. We've taken no measures to limit the amount of people who will be in the courtroom in 6 weeks. Like we're gonna try to squeeze 40 people into a courtroom that holds 6. Well, those people are going somewhere and they're not social distance. And I mean, it's not, I am not courthouse Karen here, but a lot of those people, if you're watching, are going out in the hallway and taking their masks off too. I've seen a couple people doing that. So I've said this before, and I had a conversation with a judge about this yesterday. What happens when Ray Flavin or Pat Walsh gets the COVID? And I'm hoping nobody does. And every defense attorney who's been within 3 feet of Pat or Ray now has to quarantine for 2 weeks, and there's no attorneys going to court there. What are they going to do then?
Well, just think of the number of cases. If I go down, I talk to you guys every day.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Almost every day. That's, all of our cases are now going to be, and I talked to Dan Nold, I talked to Jeff Altman. I'm in the office with those guys. Those guys got a quarantine.
Right.
That's hundreds of cases.
You're walking by or standing in line with however many other people who are up there. I mean, even people, Brian Stevens, who's not there all the time, walked right by me today. If I get COVID, he should technically quarantine, right? So, I appreciate the fact that they're kind of hopeful that things aren't going to change, but it doesn't seem like they're prepared for the idea that there could be a second wave. There could be somebody who gets it at the courthouse, or that there's a whole bunch of people who are about to show up that there's no room for.
We talked, I said the fall in the beginning of this, our gatherings here, that the second wave, and Matt, you said the end of summer. Well, I think the South and the West, Ray, your second home state starting to go up a little bit. Florida for sure is going.
Well, as I said, I've been reconsidering whether Florida is the place to go. I hate to put that. I hate to put that in the thing. When we look at the map of like, first of all, I felt like we got creamed with the rules. Okay, which is okay. That's what happened. However, if you look at this map right here, that's what the map should look like. Right here, Illinois, we got creamed and we are the best performing state in the United States. That's how we should look. That makes me feel like we did what we needed to do. And then if you go to crazy places like Florida, I don't know about that. New Mexico is run by the former Department of Health and Human Services. So she took some actions, and it looks like that may have, because I would expect New Mexico to be in between Texas's color and Arizona's color because of the politics.
Let me ask you this, Ray. You know Nevada better than anybody. Nevada's going up fairly significantly. Do you think that has to do with the strip opening up to some extent?
The thing is that I think if the strip opens up, I think that affects other states. It's not it's like it's the joke. Like when you live in a tourist town and during the winter there's 180 people and during the summer there's 20,000 people.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. I think that all of those people, if they went there and cross-infected one another, the other thing is those unions are protecting those workers. Those workers, they have PPE, they have fans, they have ventilation.
That's what I thought too. And then today I was reading some of the dealers and the housekeepers and stuff. When they went back to work, they're like, they haven't even taken our temperature. Nobody's been tested.
Right. Well,
they're bringing their own PPEs.
Other counties
is
actually.
I don't think that reflects directly in the numbers in Nevada. The other thing you have to remember about Nevada is if we take out Reno, Las Vegas, and Carson City, statistically, nobody lives in Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, just nobody lives in Vegas. So it should have nearly no cases. It's like Wyoming. How many cases can there be in Wyoming? There's only like 100,000, 180 who live there total.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. I like that we're the darkest green, us in Massachusetts. I like that our cases are way down. But you know, things like we're talking about in the courthouse, I'm worried about what that's going to do, man. I mean, you got,
Well, the prediction's always been the numbers go down, we breathe a sigh of relief, we go back to whatever we were doing, and then we have a second peak. I mean, that's the guess, but I mean, I hope it doesn't happen.
in what I've been reading too is, you know, that is this the second wave? Is this the second wave? And one of the, I think it was from Johns Hopkins, one of the epidemiologists said, well, when you call it a wave, I want you to think about if you're standing on a beach, right? And the wave comes over and it washes over your feet and then it's gone and there's no more water. And then after the interval, another wave comes over. That's the second wave. If we look at our feet right now, we're standing ankle deep in a puddle. This is the first wave.
Right.
And I think a lot of these states that you're seeing, like South Carolina did next to nothing. They're a hot spot. Texas went from 0 to, you know, Yosemite Sam shooting off the 6-shooters. Yahoo, we're open. Let's go. They're coming back. Florida, I mean, those beaches, holy Christ, those beaches were insane. They're coming back. You know, I still think, you know, JB did it wrong. But like I said the whole time, I didn't have a problem with what was done. It was how it was done. I think we're seeing that. I mean, look at, you know, California. Remember when they opened up the beach, there was, you know, no walking or just walking, no sitting, there were people elbow to elbow, no masks, no nothing.
I did you guys see the Reuters report? I don't know if I sent you, but there's a Reuters report that came out last week that said if 50% of the population just wears masks, the R rate goes to less than 1. It's like R.9, which is the number of people infected for each person who's got COVID. So just mask wearing by 50% of the people knocks the R rate down to at least a flattened curve, a slowly diminishing curve. It's amusing to me that, like, we've said this before, like, I don't know, how did the wearing the mask become such a political thing? I've been in Wisconsin a lot and they haven't had to wear masks since the middle of May. And I've been going places and just putting my mask on out of spite because I know it just it gets this weird reaction out of people. But, you know, you could basically take masks and 1 or 2 other reasonable measures that don't even require locking everybody down right now. And you're already going to start to see like things diminishing pretty quick. We're so stubborn. I mean, I know we can argue all day. Is this an issue? Is it not an issue? I'll just say again that in my neighborhood, there's 28 people who have died. I'm literally 50 yards from a nursing home that got ravaged. And the thing that scares me about it is that the staff there, like over 1/3 or almost a half of the staff got it, right? And they're not old people with compromised immunity. They're normal people. They're younger people, and they had these problems. But it's just like, it's so hard to get this nation on board with even the most mundane idea right now because everything is political. It's scary.
Well, we had a guy come into the office today, and a guy that the two of you know, and
yeah,
he was telling us, you know, he went somewhere up north and he was there for 8 days and didn't see anybody with a mask, and it was amazing. And he flew all the way up there and didn't have a mask on the plane. There was most of the people on the plane didn't have masks, and it was just great to see. And then you know, somebody in our office questioned him about it, and he goes, "Well, you don't believe this is a thing, do you?" It's a thing.
The thing that happens
Holy
to me
Jesus.
is that if somebody goes to shake your hand and you say, you know, we probably shouldn't do that. The reaction that I've got there have been 2 kinds of reaction. One of the reactions goes like this: "Oh yeah, we shouldn't shake hands because people are watching. I know it's stupid and you know it's stupid, but people are watching." That's one reaction that I've gotten. I've gotten that reaction 10 times. The second reaction is where people are, you know, like they're super vigilant. Like they want to tell you a story about I was walking down the hallway and I saw an attorney and he didn't have a mask on, or he had taken his mask down so that he could talk to his client. And you're like, well, you hear those stories and you go, there's really two sets of people out there.
You know what's interesting to me about this is, and I'm gonna just go ahead and bring God into the whole thing. Okay. Studied, I got a philosophy degree, a lot of arguing with people about God, right? Like the philosophy people, they just want to sit in a chair and be able to prove or disprove God one way or another. But one of the first things you learn about in philosophy and God is Pascal's wager. Do you guys know what Pascal's wager is? It's basically a matrix. Like if you believe in God and God exists, you're good. If you believe in God and God doesn't exist, there's no harm done. If you don't believe in God and God doesn't exist, you're fine. If you don't believe in God and God exists, you're going to hell. It's safer. There's no downside to believing. There is a
So
downside.
3 out of 4 times you're right.
Right. Exactly. If you
Okay.
believe, if you believe, but if you believe, forget being right or wrong. There's no consequence to believing if you're wrong. There is a consequence to not believing and being wrong. So through my life, so many people have said, and I don't, my thoughts on God and all this stuff is not like, I just, it's not worth arguing. It's not worth the conversation, but 20 years ago, it's what I did. So many people would say, rely on Pascal's wager. I mean, we got tested on Pascal's wager, the idea that it's the safer choice. For some reason, when it comes to masks and disease, the simple safe choice is not something that 50% or 80% or whatever that map is showing is willing to buy into. And again, I'm going to bet the people who will rely on Pascal's wager as far as belief goes, and the people who think it's not worth wearing a mask, I'm betting there's a lot of overlap there.
There's very little white on the outside of that Venn diagram.
Yeah, because the other thing is like, Pascal's wager is obviously not the only reason to believe. There's a lot of like more philosophical proofs and all this other stuff. Obviously biblical quotes and things like that. But it's just, I just, the number of people I've heard that in my life, I just wonder, how many of those people are walking around going, well, it doesn't, we shouldn't wear a mask. Did you guys see the Bill Burr thing on this, the Joe Rogan podcast?
No,
It's hilarious.
Joe Rogan's
I
podcast
watched the
was
first
awesome.
third of it. I'm saving it.
So Bill, well, you got to the good part, I think, but it's like 3 hours long. And if you've ever just watched Bill Burr go off the cuff, he's incredible. He used to put these YouTube videos out where he literally would just walk down the street. But Pat, if you get the clip, like Rogan starts in with his, this is nonsense or whatever. What do you think, Bill? And Bill just looks at him and says, look, you don't have a doctor, you don't have a medical degree, and I don't have a medical degree, and I'm not going to listen to some guy without a medical degree smoking a cigar in front of an American flag tell me I should or shouldn't listen to the CDC. I'm just going to listen to the CDC. And then Burr's like, I don't worry about it one way or another. I wake up and if the CDC says wear a mask, I wear a mask. It was really funny. But
and what do you think the overlap is about the people saying it's a hoax? It's, I don't need to wear a mask. You can't tell me to wear a mask. Open up the world to everything. Who are going to be the first ones on Twitter saying, look at these protesters. Nobody's wearing a mask. There's a pretty good chunk of overlap there too.
Right.
I saw a really well-written string of tweets today that basically talked about the problem in Florida is you clamped down, you arrested preachers and all that stuff. You were really heavy-handed early on. Then you undid everything and said, this is not something to worry about, right? How DeSantis could ever at any point right now put the brakes on and say, we need to take measures. He can't, right? I mean, he took measures. People went nuts. He undid them and said, this is all a hoax. And I think Florida had their highest ever number of new cases today.
Like 3,200 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something more than they've had, several days worth, but he politically can't come back now and just be like, well, I'm going to backpedal again.
It's super hard to tighten the rules after you've loosened them.
And he was super, super arrogant about how, you're going to see that us loosening didn't cause any spike. You're going to see that this is the way to go. And that, and they had, well, the grid only goes up to 2.6K and it's straight up through that. So I think it was almost 3,200 cases in a day.
It's just scary because so much of their population is
elderly.
They got great health care there, but a lot of
the day before it was at 1,000 new cases. The day before that, it was at 1,400, and then it was at 1,200 and 800.
I hope that I hope this quells, or I hope this goes down quickly, because I'm not in the mood for another. I do not want things to lock down again. I really don't.
I can't imagine we're not going to see at least a couple of weeks down the road. At some point, all the college kids I know, my middle son is going. They've already said it's online for the fall. They're not.
Right.
Everybody else, their semester's ending at Thanksgiving because they don't want people coming back. They don't want people going home for Thanksgiving and then coming back for finals. So everybody's semester's ending at Thanksgiving.
And this is the interesting thing to me about the way the courts are handling this, because if your tact is this was a temporary thing we just need to get through, it's the cheap, easy, fast way to go if it works. If your tact is we're using this to like we talked about months ago, using this to reform the way court's done, and a second wave kicks in, you can still keep going without interruption. I know Sycamore's doing stuff on Zoom, Kane's doing Zoom. I heard Lake County was all Zoom. And maybe that's going to be an overreaction, but on the other hand, if it comes back, they're just going to tell people come in from your basement, Zoom from your basement, and it's not like they need a 3-month disruption in court, except for trials.
And we were talking about the Supremes earlier, and Ray, let me can you let me share something here?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We got somebody we all know tweeted out the link to the Supreme Court changes, and this goes to one of the things that we talked about as far as criminal court, and I think McHenry County is doing a good job saying we're not doing any type of testimonial evidence in criminal court just based upon but they amended Rule 241. A court may, upon request or its own order for good cause shown, they're kind of broadening it out to say if a court wants to, you can ask, the state can ask, or the court can do it. They're kind of leaning towards allowing electronic telephone or video conference of a testimonial nature. In that terrifies me.
Well, I think that's going to really weaken the defense. So that's probably something that the government's pretty behind.
Well, they're apparently okay with it. I mean, they've shown, I would say indifference is being kind to what they've thought about how it affects the defense bar. Whatever we need to do to lighten the load on the courts and to make things easier. Okay. They have to consider the safeguards. This is awesome. I love this wording. This is a quote. These requirements reflect the quote relative importance of live testimony and the integrity of the examination. Live testimony is relatively important.
To be fair, okay, just to be fair and just to play the other side of the coin, live testimony is not a big part of court.
Yeah,
I know that sounds funny, but a big part of court is you show up. Do we have discovery? Do we have a deal? We get another date, and in a fair number, and I mean a very large number of cases, we're able to dispose of short of trial or short of a hearing once we've got sufficient knowledge about the case. So I agree with you that this is a watering down. If they allow live testimony over Zoom, that's a watering down of our power to try to extract the truth from a witness. However, they really could apply this to the whole rest of it. Having a defendant show up in court because it's Tuesday, because this is your court day.
Oh, no. I don't.
Telling us that you have a court date and you weren't here, so I'm going to issue a warrant, which I don't have to tell you who that's an imitation of. But the problem is that we haven't let go of that idea yet.
No, I don't. And I'm not saying for status dates, I'm not saying for status dates, we can't do that. I think it's great for status dates. I think you should do it for just regular, administrative court dates. My concern is it's somebody somewhere, and so far that the criminal judges in the 22nd in McHenry have all seemed to put their foot down and say, we're not taking any evidentiary testimony over Zoom or any other electronic means. My concern is that now that this is loosened, and if this thing does drag on, they're going to say, well, you know what, the hell with it. Let's just start doing bench trials and, God forbid, jury trials with Zoom witnesses.
So I have a question to that effect. Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, my most recent experience in this is I listened to the Kane call this week, and they talked about how many juries they can do in a week and how they're going to organize them and all this stuff. But they also did say they're going to try to do literally everything they can on Zoom, that their stated goal is to keep people out of the courthouse. But what about a happy medium, which is this? What percent of cases, say misdemeanor up, would you guys say get resolved in the first 90 days? I'm going to say less than 5-10%. I don't know.
High, but yeah.
Yeah. Or like, if you're like, so why not, first of all, when the cops give somebody a notice to appear, make it a 2-week court date where the person's presence can be waived. And then you lawyers can either personally appear, tell the client to be there, or appear by Zoom. And then instead of getting a 4-week date, why not just make it a 90-day date? Or
That's what they do on the civil side.
or a 90-day date where the client appears with 2 interim status dates so the judge can keep an eye on discovery. Because if you can keep, let's say you cut down of 2/3 of that person's personal appearance dates, you can still have attorneys show up by Zoom or show up personally, but you then have less people in the courtroom on certain days and certain times. And now you can run evidentiary hearings like mid-morning where you can't already, right? We can still have our evidentiary hearings in the courtroom if we're cutting down ridiculous nonsense court appearances. And what you started talking about today, Ray, with all the people in the hallway, look, I worked out 2 cases today. I think I had 9 or 10 cases up because I'd motioned some stuff. I worked out 2, which is a lot. But the reality is almost all those people sitting in the hallway walked in, got their court date, and left. And if those people weren't there, they could have done a bench trial this morning, but they didn't.
I worked out 6 yesterday and 4 today.
The other thing, at least with respect to Woodstock, is let's go away from this archaic, you come into courtroom 104, then you get reassigned to 301 or 303. Hold on a second. Why not make 104 like a magistrate court where you're doing all these nonsense things, and when you file a motion, you're going to get a hearing date upstairs in your trial court, and you're going to go up and do it there in person. I mean, there's a million ways you could restructure things that would not diminish what anybody who does trials is going to say, that the most important thing, which is talking and cross-examining witnesses live in court. There's a lot of ways to restructure things to do that if you're going to let people in your courthouse. And
I think they need to be there. I think you could even arrange somebody on Zoom. That's fine.
Sure.
I think they need to be there. I could see them. I don't think they need to. I think you could do that on Zoom, but I could see the courts requiring somebody to be there if you're going to set it for trial. If you're going to,
well, how about by be there standing next to you in your office on Zoom? Like that's another
you could do that.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. You could do it that way, but I would understand if they want them there. Okay.
Right.
If you could waive your right to a jury.
I think you have to waive your right to a jury in person. You don't have to be in person to set a jury trial date. You have a right to do that.
You do. And it would be, how long would it take one of us to come up with a waiver to allow to say, I'm going to waive my right to be in person and I'll do it on Zoom. And
Oh,
just
yeah,
file
yeah.
it.
Other places are already doing it. It's already done at other places.
But I don't, anything
Yeah.
that's contested, a motion to quash and suppress, a statutory summary suspension, a bench trial, a jury trial, everybody's got to be there. That's it.
And this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. If we restructure courts with the idea of the goal is to keep people out of court completely, unless they're there for one of those things, or if a case just lags on, have people come, we don't have to compromise in-person hearings. Like if we make that the most important thing, which is what it should be, we don't have to compromise on that. We don't have, and then it doesn't matter how many people can get in the. Look, I mean, if your client has the option of keeping their monthly payment up to the lawyer, not showing up to court when nothing's going to happen and not skipping work, they're going to do that every time, right? So you give
Yeah.
the lawyer some discretion in there, number one, but number two, just let it go. I mean, this is not a difficult problem to solve, but
Well,
like I
they're also counting on, they always have been. And you know, I've had individuals tell me that inconvenience is a huge part of moving cases. And if we're going to make it more convenient, people aren't willing to take crappy deals.
right.
You know, I mean, how many times has somebody told you guys, screw it, I just want to get this thing over with, and you talk to them 6 different ways, and you tell them, hey, this isn't the deal I think you should take. That's part of what the infrastructure is causing inconvenience to get rid of some of these cases. You know, the more inconvenient you can make it for somebody, the more likely they are to be less picky on the deal. So I think there's certain things you can't, that the amendment to the Supreme Court rules kind of scared me, that they're going to leave it up to the judges. I'm not super concerned about our judges. They've all seemed to say, we're not going to do it. But man, there's judges out there that'll say, let's do a jury.
Pat,
Let's just do it.
did you see in those changed Supreme Court rules the thing about speedy trials? Is that in there at all?
You know what? I thought I missed it the first time I went through, and then I read it again.
Did you word search? Did you control F?
I did not. I did not. So maybe that's why I didn't see it the second time either. But no, there doesn't seem to be a huge concern about that. There was I talked to a guy who was doing an article, and he's doing some research on courts reopening. And I forget, it was somewhere down south that was going to do a socially distant death penalty case.
That's just a bad idea.
I and he was asking my opinion of what I did, and I won't use the terms that I used with him, but I can't imagine, and I've seen some bad things happen in courts and in the judicial system. I can't imagine there's too many ideas worse than that, a death penalty case with socially distant juries.
So Matt got in a fight with the people who make tasers. And actually, he's been in a fight for 2 years.
Hold on a second. There's some action on Twitter right now.
And he's doing this fight on Twitter.
Uh-oh. Am I gonna have to hop on? Let's see what we got cooking.
So hold on. Hold on a second. There's people who are just coming out and saying that this guy getting shot in the back in Atlanta, it's okay. It's been justified. He's a fleeing felon. You could shoot him. Right. And they're not getting into the fact that you've got to have a significant threat of death or serious physical harm. Right.
For people who don't know, or maybe they do know. So it turns out this is a picture of Rayshard Brooks. He was asleep in his car. The police came in and woke him up, and then they did field sobriety tests and things like that. And he looks like a fairly cooperative guy until they tell him that he's under arrest. At the point that they tell him that he's under arrest, and here, this is a great shot right here. Up until this point, this guy is talking to them. He's making eye contact. He's disagreeing with certain things that they say. So this guy is literally there mentally. And then this happens. Now, he manages to get away from the police. And in the struggle, he takes the taser away from one of the police officers. And when he takes the taser away from the police officers, I'm going to have to skip through the commentary here. When he takes the taser away from the police officers, he starts to run. The taser is shot into him twice. And then he's running away. Oh, here we go. He's running away. He turns and points the taser. And then the police officer drops him with 2 shots in the back.
So go ahead, Pat. I mean, I'll just this is part of what is causing this man who's upset with me on Twitter. And that's
All right. There's a couple of things, people say they should have just given him a ride home. That was never going to happen in a DUI.
No,
He was going to get arrested.
he was sleeping,
Okay.
right?
he was
They-
sleeping in the car in a parking
Can
lot.
you imagine
No,
a
he was
world where we encourage people to park and sleep it off instead of get in the car and drive? Can you imagine
Well, he was,
how crazy that would be?
I think he was in the drive-through. I think that's what the call came in. He was in the drive-through. So
Whatever.
people couldn't get their Wendy's triples. The thing that I mean, if he would have come back and said they tased me, they would have said it's non-lethal force. All right. But when he goes to turn the taser on the cop, then suddenly the cop's life was in danger. You can't have it both ways. It can't be non-lethal on the defendant and lethal for the cop. Okay. And did they get rid of the felony part of a fleeing felon? Did they absolve it?
Well, the thing is that the taser was discharged when he pointed it at them, and the police officers knew it did not have another. It did
Right,
not have
it had
another
two.
charge.
Can I just
It-
tell you?
it-
Can I just
Two
tell
charges.
You,
They already discharged two of them. There's
So
no
you-
reason.
Right, it was already discharged. So when he pointed at them, he was pointing a flashlight at them.
So you guys are having the conversation that's going on the internet, and what's crazy to me about it is everybody hops to the final conclusion, right? Everybody says, "Well, it was justified, so it's okay." And part of the point I'm keep making on Twitter is, even if that's justified by police training, doesn't necessarily make it reasonable under the Constitution. This is exactly what's going to. But I want to bypass that entire discussion, okay? Because that discussion is based on 100 years of Supreme Court rules, some of which are freaking ridiculous. The fleeing felon rule, in a lot of ways, is ridiculous. The fleeing felon rule came about at a time where somebody can rob a bank, run off into the hills of, Arizona, or go into Texas, something that thought it was his own sovereign country, and never, ever, ever be brought to justice again. We don't live in those times. But the conversation I think we should have is watch this video and tell you, like, what should the result of this be? Even if the law says this is justified, is that where we should be now? Like, does it not make sense to look at this and say, look, a dude who's running away from you and taking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps before you're running after him, is it okay to shoot that guy in the back? And especially in light of the fact that who knows who else is in that Wendy's parking lot? If he misses that guy and it sails over his shoulder and kills somebody's mom, are we okay with that risk? And to me,
and
What's that?
that's one of the things they're talking about. It's justified pursuant to police training. Ray hit it on the head. It's a flashlight, and it's not a flashlight that this guy withdrew from inside of his coat and pointed it at him before this guy had a chance to break it. It's a flashlight that the batteries were dead that he took out of the cop's hand. The cop didn't think for a second he was pulling a weapon. The cop didn't think for a second he was going to get shot. The cop shouldn't have thought for a second he was even going to get tased. There's no reason. That's not, if that's police training, well, that's a huge piece of what people are protesting right now. Train them otherwise. That if somebody puts an inanimate, non-lethal, non-harmful object in your direction, don't put 2 slugs in their back.
I guess and the thing is that I may live in a utopian world, but I kind of feel like we're having this discussion. We're having this discussion at a time where we shouldn't be having this discussion. The police officers had stopped him. They were talking about, we're going to arrest you. All of us on this video all know he's getting arrested. Okay. Big spoiler. Sorry about that, folks. We all know he's getting arrested. However, when he turns to run, okay, now we saw the video, and I don't want to belabor this, but I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. If we go back to the video, pardon me, I'm just hunting up the picture that I want to use. Okay, so the idea is that going back to the video, and let's look at this is where we are in the year 2020, okay? We have the guy on video. When we look at the video, there is literally no doubt who that is. We could almost discern twins. That's how good this video is. Okay. We can tell if he's sweating. We can tell if just if he had slight marks on his shirt, we could see them. Okay. The detail is very good. When he turns and runs, in my perfect world, and I'm Ray the libtard, the police should whisper, running away right now is a felony. We'll see you at your house tomorrow.
Right.
Good night, everybody.
Your car's over here. We know where you
car's
live.
right here. Your car's right here. And we're not going to wrestle you to the ground because there's no reason for us to wrestle you to the ground. And you're an adult.
Good luck
with
your
run away. That's fine.
And good luck with your empty taser that probably has a camera in it and is probably recording everything you're doing right now.
All you have to do is say to run away from a police officer when you've been asked to stop is a felony. So goodbye, guy. I'll see you when we pick you up later. Well, and we're done. There doesn't have to be any, listen, I'm going to try to wrestle this guy to the ground. I don't know where we get off. It's time to wrestle somebody to the ground.
Well, and Matt, I just checked out your buddy there citing Tennessee versus Garner, and I wanted to make sure I remembered it. I'm still trying to figure out, and I've seen this video quite a bit, where the threat of death or serious physical injury was from him having the flashlight in his hand. Where is it? It's not there.
So one of my tweets to this guy was like, because he's like, I'm a use of force instructor, or I was. One of my tweets to this guy was like, look, as a cop, you're going to get snippets of law. They're going to give you shorthand. This is what a case stands for. This case says if you smell an odor of alcohol, you can search a car. You know, you're not going to get into all the more nuanced stuff. And then sure enough, when he started talking about use of force, it's like, will you leave this whole part out? But he's telling me right now on Twitter that if it's reasonable if it's justified by the police, it's therefore reasonable as a matter of criminal law, which is one of my gripes forever. Look, if it's justified by the police, that can come in as to whether or not it's reasonable, but it doesn't mean it is reasonable. That's up for a jury or a judge or whoever the finder of fact is to decide. And they can go either way on that. They can buy it or not buy it. They can say, you know, like, what's his name? The guy, Jason Van Dyke, like the jury there bought that, at least part of that defense and reduces charge. But it doesn't mean it's justified because a cop signs off and says this is justified use of force according to our police manual, doesn't mean it's not a criminal offense.
Well, I think, you know, bro, the use of force instructor, if he's saying that falls under Tennessee versus Garner, that would explain a lot of these shooting deaths that are happening with law enforcement right now. It's stunning.
It's
well, I think as I said, and I jump in with the wrong idea here, but I understand Black Lives Matter shows you what the problem is. But you know what the real problem is? The real problem is the police are taught to tackle, disable, disarm people who don't need to be tackled, disabled, or disarmed. There's no reason in the world for them to confront these people, okay? And I'm not talking in the situations where they need to. Somebody points a gun at you. That's a different situation, okay? But in a routine DUI arrest, if the person gives you a hard time, be like, okay, go do whatever you want to do. I'm telling you, if you leave, it's going to be a real big problem.
Are you suggesting the guy who was too drunk to stay awake in the drive-thru wasn't going to get far?
Well, that's the other problem. The other problem is that in our area of the law, the drunkie's not going anywhere. Okay, right. He's going to stumble 4 feet.
That guy was getting
and go over on his face,
or whatever was 6 inches off the ground. That's as far as that guy was going. He was gonna end up on his face, probably going. The amusing thing to me out of all of it is, you know, we can keep having a conversation about what the law is and what the police are trained, but the fact that nobody who's involved in law enforcement sees that there could be another way. Like law enforcement looks at this and says, this is how we're trained. This is the only way to do it. Force, whatever. Ray, you suggest something on Facebook and people go nuts. Like there's not another way. To me, that's why we're caught on a hamster wheel. It's because law enforcement, by and large, and to be honest with you, I think a lot of this is spurred on by like Axio, what are they, Axon or whatever they're called, the police industry, which basically shuts out things like, you know, psychologists and social workers and all that stuff. But the fact that nobody in policing sees there could be another way or could do improve or could fork it and go in a completely separate direction is I think what's fueling all the protests now. You know, you've got normal American people saying, we don't like this. And then you've got the cops pushing back going, well, this is the only way it can happen. There is a happy medium in there, which is like change the way it can happen. But, you know, there's a stubbornness there. And it's like, I don't know if you guys read I don't know if this stuff was true, the stuff today about all the Atlanta police officers who walked out or didn't show up for roll call or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, if you guys are trying to argue against defunding the police, you just walked off the job. Like, didn't you lose the right to make that argument? But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm certainly not.
A lot of it is an attitude that's pervasive with them. I thought I saved it. I didn't. There was a tweet about, there was a clip of Dallas police officers. I think it was 2016. This guy was having psychological issues, called 911 for help. That's Ray's seat filler.
He's coming back with beer. You know, he's coming back.
So, absolutely. So this guy calls 911 for help, right? He's having a hard time psychologically, or he's having a hard time on substances or whatever. It turns around. They've got 3 guys. They handcuff him, and it looks like he's on a bale of hay.
Yeah.
They're kneeling on his back. He tells him, like, you know, the same thing everybody says when they're kneeling on your neck. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. He goes out, and they're like, oh, he's asleep. Good night. Hey, so-and-so, it's your first day of school. Wake up. They're making jokes. This guy's dying or dead. They're kind of, you know, lightly slapping his face. They call the paramedics in, and it says they gave him the story only said that they gave him a powerful sedative. So I don't know if they gave Narcan or what they gave him, or I don't know what it was. But, you know, and they're joking with the paramedics. This guy hasn't moved. He hasn't breathed in minutes. They put him on a stretcher, a gurney, the paramedics do. His head falls over, and one cop finally goes, he didn't die, did he? He's not dead. And the other cops start laughing. They're like, no, he's not dead. He's sleeping. And the one cop is, you know, he's fairly concerned at this point. And the cop says, you know, holy S, I hope we didn't kill him. And the two other cops go, oh, what's this wee stuff, man? You were kneeling on his neck. Boom. And they're gonzo. But they're joking with this guy the whole time, a guy who called them for help.
You know what's interesting about that is that if they gave him Narcan, do you know what Narcan does? I mean, Narcan is something that will bring you out of an opioid overdose immediately. Yeah. But right. It also immediately throws you into withdrawal. So it's not uncommon for people who get Narcan to get really, really crabby, really, really fast. And I don't know if that's something the police are trained on or not, but if they gave somebody Narcan, first of all, they're in a really bad spot to start. Second of all, it's not just going to be a pleasant interaction afterwards. But the reality is, like, the way police are trained now, are they even the ones who should be doing the Narcan? Like, don't you want that guy to wake up next to a counselor or a therapist of some kind or a medical professional who can deal with this guy? I mean, isn't in that sort of instance, you're basically taking somebody who's trained to control a situation by using force if necessary, and putting them in a very, very situation with somebody who's got a social and medical condition. And I don't, it's just,
and I understand that there are times where 100% a cop is on the scene first. He's going to have to shoot the guy with Narcan to save his life. I get that. But if you're in a situation and somebody shoots an injection into a guy's neck and you're asking, hey, is it Narcan? You should probably know what's going on. The medical professional who's on the scene should tell you, so you can know what's going to happen or what the potential reaction is. And second, if, a minute after they inject him with Narcan and nothing's being done, I don't know, stop kneeling on his back and neck. Maybe let the paramedic who's on scene take a look at this guy. No charges were forthcoming.
Either me or Kim Messer just got called a dumbass on Twitter, and I'm not sure which. I think I got to have this guy clarify, right?
Yeah.
You want him to clarify which?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem fair. Okay, we'll put your Twitter up on the screen so we all can see it.
Hold on a second. I'll do that, Ray. I mean, this guy is.
And the other thing is that when you put it up on the screen, you have to put the link to this show so he can swing around and talk about it.
I don't think he's gonna read it, Ray.
I would certainly
Earl
enjoy
and
having.
Tracy.
I don't see. You know what? I can't find it on mine. Is it on?
So the conversation
putting
right
the
now
YouTube
is
link on it?
the conversation right now is because it's a justified shooting by the police. Is that automatically a defense? And my position is, it goes to whether or not actions were reasonable. It's an argument. It's usually a good argument. It's usually an argument that wins. It's not the end of the story. And my complaint about all of this, going back to Ferguson, is usually when there's an investigation, it gets justified and they say this is over. Well, when Ray's client has a self-defense claim or Pat's client has a self-defense, it's not like that's what happens. They go, oh, it's not up to us. It's up to the judge.
Right. I didn't know police training standards had the force of law or statute.
Well, as I said, I think that the problem that we're having is a individual rights. An individual should have a right not to be shot by a police, not to be tackled by a police. I mean, obviously they can lose that right at some point, but there's way too much. Whenever I've hung out with police officers, whenever I've been on softball teams with them or whatever, the whole 9 yards, they seem very enthusiastic about kicking the shit out of somebody. Now that doesn't seem to me to be a very professional attitude.
When you
The
say
other thing is,
I already know who you're talking about, man.
but the point is this. If we're dealing with somebody who is mentally ill, or if we're dealing with somebody who is impaired deeply by drugs or alcohol, as it turns out, your ability to manipulate them it's easy to manipulate them. You don't have to be sarcastic. You just have to be, wow, gosh, you don't have any shoes or pants on, guy. Let's find a place where we can get some shoes or pants for you. You know what I'm saying? We
Right.
don't jump on the guy and start trying to restrain him, which will, of course, in those instances, make him respond back, make him try to run away, make him try to do whatever.
Wait a second. You're saying that somebody who's struggling with their grasp of reality,
Yes.
that physical force, mockery, and sarcasm is not the way to address that situation, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm
That's how
pretty
you guys-
sure that that's not the way to deal with these
I'm
things.
fairly certain police standards say it is, Ray. That's how it has to be done.
This is
So
me
that's the right way to do it.
making the sign that we've come full circle, because now we have just walked into every live PD video Ray and I have watched for the original focus of this channel, and it's always like me and Ray sitting there going like, well, maybe if the cop hadn't got sarcastic with that guy, we wouldn't have been here. And I know you
Yeah, but Matt, he's got, a 500,000 viewers out there who are
Right.
looking for suns out, guns out tattoo guy to be the hero.
That's right. And it's funny because people will be like, well, maybe if the guy wasn't a dumbass. Now, the reality is, are we looking for police to settle the score on sarcasm and dumbassery? Or are we looking for police to get from point A to B with as little risk involved to everybody as possible?
The
I would
other
go
thing
for the
that's-
latter.
the other
Including
thing
the cops.
Yeah.
The other thing that's reverse, it is reverse frustrating to me. Okay. It's reverse frustrating because, as Pat will tell you and Matt will tell you, having a cop who is way too aggressive, way too regimented, unable to bend, having him on the stand is a delight. It's
Oh, it's
like
awesome.
it's like a holiday for us. It's like this is great. The worst possible cop for us as defense attorneys is somebody who is kind, polite, thoughtful, understanding, somebody who's just out there trying to do the best they can. Honestly, you
Right.
can't beat that guy. You can never beat that guy. Because you know what the jury's going to do? They're going to go, "Aw,
Oh,
aw, look at that.
doing his
He-
job.
He gave him a ride home after the arrest. He bought him McDonald's. That guy kills me every time. There's no beating that guy. The other guy, it's easy. And as I said, the reverse frustrating part is if an officer comes up to a vehicle where he suspects that the person's under the influence, instead of being snippy, snide, insulted, mad that this guy's DUI, he should be like, if I talk to this guy, he is going to bury himself. Where are you coming from? Oh my gosh. Was there any problems? I mean, I noticed both of your tires are flat. Did somebody hit you? Should we go look for somebody? I mean, the person could draw this person out and bury them, but instead they want to confront them. That makes the driver shut down. And then if they're kind of an asshole, it gives me an argument to say, hey, they're not able to prove their case. And it's not my fault. It's their duty to prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. So
well-
what's going on? What you keep on looking at the Twitter? Where are we at now? I only saw 25 different posts there.
Hold on a
You
second.
got to get Messer pretty fired up to hop on there, man. She's got to. I may pipe up when I'm done here.
Poor guy.
It's just.
Yeah, it's not up to the courts to determine what's legitimate use of force, Matt. Come
So,
on.
like I just basically said, just because the police say something is use of force doesn't mean a cop can't be held to trial, right? He responds with, not if they are within their legal use of force process. That's why it's there. And I just responded with, incorrect. Police justifying police use of force does not insulate police from trial. Just ask Jason Van Dyke. Wrong on that?
And we're done.
Yeah, he didn't raise that defense as far as I know. He didn't say I can't be held to trial because my department didn't bring charges forever, or didn't say my use of force wasn't reasonable. I
Well,
don't
then
know.
here's the deal. Then why don't you just file a motion to dismiss to say, old Earl told me I could do this and he knows Supreme Court law. Yep.
I don't. It's amazing that somebody who worked as a reasonable use of force instructor is this so
Did you
far
send
off.
the link to this program to Earl?
No.
Well, I'll tell you what. This might be.
That's
We
kinda-
might have to. Let's invite Earl to our next gathering. And Earl seems to be somewhat of a Supreme Court law scholar.
We could
Maybe we
use
could
one
get
of
on
those. We always can use one of those.
You know what? I'm always up for some CLEs. We'll see if Earl can certify them for us, but yeah, I'm up for it. Well, boys,
We have come to the end of our road. However, we'll be back next Thursday at 8:30. And it will feature, provided that the world hasn't caught on fire.
I'm asking Earl if he can join us next week. You guys, I encourage you guys to also say that we would love to talk to him. We just asking people on and nobody will come.
right? I
don't
think
know
our
why
guests have been a big hit. We've always had good guests.
Especially that one time.
Well,
The fox and the cow, or which I forget how it went.
the intended guests have always been spot on.
Oh, Oh, sorry. Yeah. Gentlemen, you have a good night. I'm going to cut off the YouTube feed. Everybody out there, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat, and we'll talk about them, or we'll ignore them. One of the two. Have a good night, everybody.
See you guys.